Hey.
Welcome, welcome. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this webinar, The Power of Coactive Coaching. I'm Gail Barker. I am here as one of the coaches for this demo, and I am the Manager of Faculty Enablement at CTI. I have oversight of our global faculty, and I am also front of room leader with CTI.
Welcome, Gail.
You rock.
And I'm Roxane. I'll be Gail's partner in this session with you all. I have various roles at CTI, from leading the front of the room courses and co-curriculum and certification. And I'm also part of the faculty development team, so supporting our faculty in their training and development needs.
Yeah, so we're thrilled to be here with you all today. And what we're going to do is give you a sense of what you can expect over the next 90-ish minutes. We're going to take a little bit at the beginning to explain what coaching is and what it isn't. We're going to demo a coaching tool, learn about a coaching tool, and then witness a demo of it, where you'll have a chance to experience several coaching skills.
And then we'll
Well,
talk about what you've seen. So what we call a debrief, where we have a chance to interact with you through the chat about what you've seen. And then we'll give you an opportunity to go into a breakout room in a small group to digest a bit what you've seen and process it, and then maybe come up with some questions, because on the way back from the breakout room, we'll have a Q&A session where hopefully a lot of the questions will be answered.
mm-hmm. So one of the things we do in coactive coaching is design our alliance. We do that with our clients, our co-leaders at the front of the room will do this with one another as well as with participants. And so that's part of what we're going to do right now with you. We're going to do this in a slightly different way. We're going to name a few things that are true for this webinar that we want you to be aware of. And one of those things is that everything in CTI is co-led. So Roxane and I are co-leading this. And what's different about this from many other spaces where things are co-led is we have a timeline that we follow, but nothing in this webinar is scripted. So
Yeah.
Roxane and I will speak when we feel free, when we wish to speak, when we feel called to speak. Um, you might see us step on each other's toes a little bit. We call this the coactive dance. And so we just want to normalize that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. And I'm wondering if we carry on with the design of the alliance before we ask a little bit from people. But let's carry on the design, shall we, Gail?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
we've asked somebody, we'll share the tool with you, as we said, and we've actually asked somebody to do a little bit more reflection on the tool, the Wheel of Life, so that they would come ready to be a volunteer client for this demo. So they're going to obviously share their real stuff. Again, no role play here. And so, normally in coaching, we obviously have a confidentiality agreement. This person knows that this is used for the purpose of this webinar. So it's obviously not confidential.
Mm-hmm.
But the person is obviously in agreement with that. And they had a bit of more time to look at the tool than you will have when we share the tool with you.
Mm-hmm. I love that you're underscoring that, Roxane, because it's important to note that in coaching, confidentiality is an expectation, and we are well aware of that. And our client is aware that in this context, confidentiality is not going to be held quite the same way, because you all be watching and learning from their experience as well. So before we go into an explanation of what coaching is, let's get a sense of who's here with us. If you could pop in chat, where are you calling from or zooming in from, as the case may be? We've got some people from the US, Portland, Orlando, San Francisco. I'm gonna miss Ottawa. Hello, fellow Canadian.
And somebody from London, hello.
There you go, right? Grenada, yeah. Bangkok. Okay, so quite a global
Wow, quite diverse. It's so
yeah.
thank you. Bangkok, like this is quite late for some of you, some very early for others. So thank you for joining.
Peterborough, Ontario. So yes, another Ontarian. I too am in southwestern Ontario, so I'm acknowledging those places. We got Germany, Switzerland. Yeah, lots of global representation. So welcome to each and every one of you. We're glad that you've taken the time to be with us.
Great. So shall we, V, would you mind bringing some slides on just to give us a bit of visual support?
Mm-hmm. So we're going to look specifically at the slide that explains what coaching is. So this is like 1, 2, 3, fourth slide. Yeah, there we go. So the International Coaching Federation, which is the governing body of this unregulated field, is very clear on what coaching is and isn't. And it's important to understand the distinction because otherwise coaching and mentoring and consulting, they can all sort of get collapsed together and they are very distinct and different. So you can see from the definition on the screen, and for those of you who might not be able to see, I'll read it out loud. According to the ICF, coaching is partnering with individuals in a thought-provoking, creative process that inspires them to maximize their personal and professional potential.
Yeah, so we're really accompanying individuals on the journey of evolution as human beings in the context they're in, as opposed to, if we think of other professions, if I was a mentor, I would give them some tools that they can then use because I have more experience in what they want to manifest or change in their life. So we don't provide answers. We actually ask questions as coaches.
Yeah, we're here to support our clients in growing themselves so that they themselves can find the answers that will work for them. There's nothing cookie cutter about coaching. There's nothing templated about it. It very much is tailored to the individual in front of us, and the tailoring is done in a co-creative process, right? It's co-created. And for many of our clients, that's something that they're not used to. They're used to being in dynamics where somebody has got not only has power and authority over, but utilizes it in that way. And in a coaching sense, we don't do that. We very much partner with our client, as you can see in the definition, and it's done for the very specific purpose of having them maximize their potential and achieve.
And you see, as Gail is talking, she's doing this with her hand, sort of hand, and that's actually very much how we hold the relationships, where we, the coach, we give 100% and we ask our client to give the 100%. So that we actually on an equal footing. I'm not coming as a superior detainer of the truth or expertise. I'm really here with my whole self supporting this other individual, but through the relationship that we create very consciously.
Yeah, well put. And we are showing up as coaches with our whole self, and we're acknowledging that the client in front of us is coming with their whole self, their entire lived experience. We acknowledge all parts of them as we dance and co-create whatever it is that's needing to be co-created.
Yeah, so all parts include obviously the mental realm, the emotions, the body, the spirit, and also all the roles they play in their lives. So even if we work in a context, for example, in corporations where we do a lot of executive coaching, we're still seeing the person rather than the role or the executive that we have in front of us.
This feels like a good place to layer in. I always find this helpful when I'm trying to remember what we're doing as coaches. Jim Patterson is a legend within the coaching industry as a whole, but certainly within Coactive. He has since passed away, and I never had the opportunity to meet him, but I quote him regularly because one of his sayings is, we do not coach for a problem to be solved. We coach for a life to be lived. And that to me is such an important distinction, because if folks are simply looking for problem solving, they can go to consultants, they can find mentors, they can do that. But coaching is not about that. Coaching is about having folks expand themselves in service of whatever it is they're longing to create.
Yeah. So it's a very different mindset. I was
Mhm.
actually leading a fundamentals course last weekend, which is our very first module when you start the coactive journey. And a lot was discussed around mindset and sort of moving from a mindset of looking for solutions to a mindset of listening to a person, finding their own solutions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just typing in the chat that quote because somebody may want it. Somebody inevitably does. But as I'm doing that, we can go to the next slide, which is a specific tool that many of you may have seen. There are versions of this around on the internet. We call it the Wheel of Life. And this is what we're going to be building on coaching with in the demo that Roxane is about to do.
So you see, it's a wheel with 8 different areas. Others could be added for sure, but some of them can be split. This is, in the idea of some of the areas that most people would look at as important parts of their life. And it's an invitation really for a self-reflection. And we're going to invite you in a moment to do that. Just take a minute to reflect on your level of satisfaction in each of these areas. So we have family and friends, and again, this can be divided into 2 if there's a very different perception of your satisfaction. We have significant other romance as another area, fun and recreation, health, money, personal growth, physical environment, where often people ask, what do you mean? Physical environment is literally where you are physically. So it might be your home, your flat, your house, your garden, your town or village, your country, planet Earth. Like you can really expand it to whatever is relevant to you.
Yeah.
And then career.
And so one of the things that's important here to note is when our clients are working with this wheel, this isn't about quantity, it's about quality. So the phrase that you heard Roxane use is level of satisfaction. So when you look at a wedge like money, this isn't about how much money you have or don't have, make or don't make. This is about how satisfied you are with you and your relationship to money, how it plays out in your life. And that might have a relationship to quantity, but it's not about the actual number. So, I've had clients who make less than $50,000 a year who are very satisfied with that in their life and would rate it at a 9 or a 10, and others who are making, $500,000 a year who are not so satisfied. Like the way they interact with it, the way it plays out is not where they want it to be. And so they would rate it lower. And
Yeah.
so the
So
same is true for all of them.
it's a very subjective, as you can see from Gail's explanation. It's a very subjective perception. It's also your perception in this moment.
Yeah.
It's not an absolute truth. It's not set in stone for the rest of your life. It's like now, if you look into your level of satisfaction, how would you rate it? And so we invite you to go with 1 being the lowest level and 10 being, your highest level of satisfaction. And if you're wondering why we don't put a 0, which I think would be a very valid question, my take on it is because as soon as you have an awareness of it, you're actually not 0 anymore. That awareness is taking you to a 1.
Yeah. Yeah. Well put. So go ahead and, do this wheel for yourself. You can just jot it on a scrap piece of paper. It's an interesting snapshot in time. It'll give you a visual. And we are grateful to have a volunteer who's already been briefed, as Roxane said. They have already had the opportunity to look at the wheel, get clear on what it is for them, and they're going to come up and Roxane is going to do a demo of how to work with this specific tool. So this is a little bit, thank you, Elisa. I apologize.
Elisa, yes.
I said that wrong. Much appreciated. So the demo is a demo of how to work with this tool. In other words, it's not a pure coaching in and of itself. There's coaching, of course, that's being done, but it's revolving around this tool. And that's what Roxane is going to demo for you all.
Okay, so I'm going to invite Elisa.
Yeah,
Elisa,
screen. Come on up to the screen. And while we're waiting for Elisa, this is going to be a demo of about 15 minutes, thereabouts.
Yeah, and I've asked Gail to give me a sense of time. Hi. So Gail will give me a sign when I'm at 10 minutes.
Yeah, I will.
And
I'll
then
do it verbally.
do it verbally.
And if you don't like acknowledge me, then I'll flash my screen on quickly. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Thank
See
you.
you in a bit.
Thank you. Okay. Elisa.
Yes. Good morning. Good afternoon. Good. You're in London.
Good day.
Good day. Good day to you.
Good day. Thank you very much for being a volunteer for this demo of how we're going to use the Wheel of Life. Is there anything you need for you knowing the setup of this to make the most of the coaching session and feel, at ease?
I guess it's worth noting ahead of me starting that I approach things from a kind of Black feminist praxis lens. So in the work and legacy of Audre Lorde and Octavia E. Butler, very much consider myself an Afro-presentist. And so I'm sure that will come out, but I thought it might be worth acknowledging it.
Thank you for mentioning it. And of course, then, on the other side, clearly I'm a sort of middle-aged white European woman. So we having certainly in common is the woman aspect, and there'll be lots of other differences that will I'm sure include in our conversation. Yeah. And do you have your permission to ask some maybe provocative questions or share some my intuition?
Absolutely.
Yep, thank you. And of course, if any of the things I do doesn't land well with you, or you would like something else or different, please let me know, and we'll co-create in the moment.
Sounds good.
And I'm also going to ask you if you have room for maneuver, if you're able to stand or move. You are?
I am, yes.
Okay, great. So probably we'll be using the space around us as well in the coaching. Good. So we're going to start with the Wheel of Light. I know you had a chance to look at the whole picture, and we're going to start with which area of the wheel you would like to increase your level of satisfaction at this point in time.
I chose career.
Career.
Career and money were equally, I rated equally at around 3. So that's
okay.
That's where we're at.
So career is your choice. You rated it as a 3. So how would you describe your experience of the 3?
I think that part of the 3 comes from my own expectations of myself, based on my intentions, the work that I've done, things that I can't control that are kind of a part of my experience. And I guess the way that I am coping or responding to those things that I cannot control that impact the career things. So yeah, I'm very much an extrovert. So when we started sheltering in place here in the Bay Area, I worked in San Francisco, the first city that did a lockdown. And so since March 2020, I had a hard time since
Right.
A lot of the tools and community that I built to kind of do my life suddenly switched to either the community got smaller because people moved, or I was in isolation, and then there was lots of death and loss, and I got laid off. So everything was impacted all at the same time. And I've kind of noticed over the last few years that career is the thing that is still kind of lagging as I've had more growth in other areas of my life.
Right. So I hear there's definitely a sense of you being impacted by external factors that have taken away some of the things that actually you value a lot, like a sense of community, contact with people, connection. And still you gave it to 3. So I'm curious, what is in there that is not a 1?
I am currently working on a project that is very aligned with my own personal and professional values. The business partner that I work with I kind of also rated in the significant other because we chose to move to Mexico City. I'm in the Bay Area now, but I've moved out of the United States in order to continue to pursue this project with this person. So the commitment level that I have to this, the way that I believe in the project, and the impact that I think it will have, they're all great positive things. I'm just very new to the work.
Right.
And I know that a lot is required of me in the type of role that I'm in. And so kind of being where I'm at, having the troubles that I've had over the last few years, it makes me a bit insecure about those things. Or even though I found alignment in theory, in practice, it means I have a lot of work to do.
Right. So I'm hearing this 3 represents this project that feels very aligned with what's important to you. And there's a little bit of insecurity around what's required of you to really be successful at this project. Yeah. And so as you're describing this 3 to me, what are you becoming aware in your energy and how your body responds?
Maybe I should have rated a bit higher because I became very excited as I started to talk about it.
Interesting.
Which is not an experience that I've had in the past when I've talked about career. And so maybe I'm undervaluing a little bit of that alignment, but also when I think of career, it's like, what have I accomplished? And I still have a lot of work to do there. So like the outputs aren't quite there yet, but the emotional investment is.
Right. So you can change your mind if you want to. Is it still a 3 or are you changing in the rating?
I think career might be a 4 and money might be the 3. I think money is more aligned with the part that I'm struggling with.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's check. And are we still talking of career? You're still happy to stay focused on career?
Yes. Yes.
Great. Great. And I noticed as you just noticing that actually maybe you haven't devalued it, like your body sort of settled, physically settled. So I'm curious, like what are you noticing now?
That feels more honest and you know that allows for more settling, a more grounded experience now that it's like, okay. Yeah, I've acknowledged the feelings now that I've said it out loud, and that shift feels better.
Okay, great. So from there, where I would like to invite you to look is what you would like it to be. So give it a number and actually find a different physical space to be into. So where you are now is this 4 of career. And if you look around, you're like, what's the number you want and where does it live in your environment now?
Gonna have to stand.
Okay, great.
Okay, I think it more centered in my environment, standing, a little bit more confident. This would be like a 7.5, 8. And I'd be
7.5.
more than, yeah, I'd be more than thrilled with that.
Yeah.
That means there's still room to grow and something to look forward to, but yeah, level of confidence that I don't have now.
Okay, Good, good. And I'm seeing you like saying it in a slightly tentative way. So 7.5, 8, there is more confidence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What else is there? If you really give yourself permission to dream it.
I think perhaps with that confidence, there's experience, which allows me to more deeply identify with um, the role that I'm taking on. It wouldn't be as new. Um, Maybe what I need is a mentor. I don't know what I don't know, so
Mm-hmm.
maybe that would also help with the confidence. But
So it's
I'm sorry, can you?
familiarity, experience, confidence. How does that live in your body as you stand? Anything you're noticing?
I find myself diverting my eyes from the camera when I didn't do that as much when I was sitting. So I need to look at myself more. uh,
Where is your attention going?
I'm thinking, so I'm looking up and kind of to the left, which is like I'm not sure of the answer. I'm looking for it, as opposed to it coming from a confident place where I know this, you know.
Good noticing. So this is about really you exploring. So what would be a typical day for you in this 7.5, 8?
Well, part of what I'm doing is capacity building and fundraising. So it would be a kind of clarity between myself, my team, and the folks who are helping to make this project possible around what resources are needed and how they're being used, what they're being used for, and what progress is being made because those resources are available. Um, I think also there would be a level of visibility that I have to have
Right.
with in the organization, not just, from a kind of leadership perspective, but I'm asking folks for things. Give me your money.
Yeah. And so just
So
to reframe a little bit, like in this 7.5, 8, we're actually dreaming it is happening. So you
hmm,
are being visible, you have this clarity, your leadership is being seen. And how does that feel?
That's 10
that
rocks.
feels like we're at,
Thank you.
that's a 10. Oh, that's 10 minutes.
That's a 10 minutes. It could also be a 10. I
Gotcha.
don't know.
I mean, it might feel like I have, some days in my work week might feel like fives and some might feel like tens. I don't have very many tens in my work week right now. So, um, yeah, I think there might be more days that I feel like I'm winning at the thing that I'm trying to do and less learning.
Yeah, yeah. And so in this 7.5, 10, if you really fully allow you to own that it is happening, um, what's really important for you that's being realized here?
Um, I guess I need a level of recognition that I'm not stating.
Right? And you're laughing.
Um,
What's the laugh about?
um, it's something that I can ask for that today. So
Right?
realizing that that's what it is like, this maybe just some introspection and some perspective was all I needed for that four to creep up quite a bit if I just ask for the right things.
Oh, so it sounds like it's a big insight, like the acknowledging this wanting recognition, and actually you're able to ask for it.
Hmm.
Yeah. Good. So that feels like a good time to be leaving the 7.5, 8 for now and coming back to where we started. So I'm going to invite you to sit down again, back from where we were. And what would be a first step for you to get closer to this 7.5, 8 of satisfaction on career from where you are now?
I think I need to be a little bit more courageous in sharing the work that I'm doing, um, not just with my immediate business partner, but on a wider scale, so that I create space for that recognition. Um,
And I want to acknowledge that you are being really courageous now because you're sharing with me and with lots of people here.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, I'm hoping to do more of that. And that's a scary thing to do when you're feeling insecure.
Yeah.
Um,
And it
Sharing
seems to
about
give
my,
you energy, Elisa. I'm
yes,
seeing you like with a big smile on your face and definitely more alive. What are you feeling?
yeah, I'm feeling definitely more um activated. Like like this has been a bit of an enzyme for the process that's starting that I've been like, I don't know how to start this. And now it's like, oh, I just share.
Yeah, you've started it. You have shared. You
Yeah.
can totally do this. So, what is something you want to commit to in this line of action, the sharing, that would be serving?
Well, I started a blog, I started writing about my experience last month, and um, I thought I would be able to do something on a weekly basis. It took a lot more emotionally out of me than I anticipated, and the work needs to be worked on. So, um, I need to get my next issue out. I need to publish my next piece, and make it connected to the sharing that is required, that I know is now required of me in order for
Right.
the recognition that I've acknowledged now that I need.
Right. So you're going to write this next post for your blog that is connected to the sharing. And by when do you want to do this?
By end of week.
End of this week.
Hmm.
Great. And how are you going to hold yourself accountable for this?
Well, I've just told a bunch of people that I've said it, I'm going to do
You have 100 witnesses here.
it. Um, but also I think I probably should share with someone who I'm hoping to get that recognition and acknowledgement from. This is coming, and I would love your feedback on it so that now there's something I'm waiting on in return for me delivering this.
Great. So it sounds like you have a clear accountability here that's going to really keep you motivated and activated. And so congratulations on committing to this. It feels like a big step. Although you've
Yes,
already started the blog, that next piece feels like it's a kind of a shift, a flexion point.
yes.
So you are being really courageous and bold in what you're committing to in front of everybody. And I'm wondering, what is it you're learning about yourself as we closing this session?
Sharing for me isn't scary. I just need to get over the initial, like the process of doing it in the moment isn't scary. I want to share. It feels natural for me to do this. Um, I enjoy it. So the fear that I have, I need to interrogate that a little bit more because I don't know what it's attached to.
Ah, that's good
Um,
thing. Yeah, maybe there's what we call an inquiry, just like a big question you take to think about. An inquiry you could take away about like what this sphere is about, or yeah, would that
yeah,
be useful?
absolutely. I think I know what it is.
Yeah, I think you're very self-aware, Lisa, and you're so clear about what you want, and you are indeed natural in when you're sharing. You're very enrolling. I can't wait. I would like to receive the address of this blog and read what you're posting, please.
Okay, I'm happy to share it. I will.
Thank you so much, Elisa. Anything else you want to say before we close?
Um, no, I guess I would ask you from this process, what's like me perhaps a nugget that I can take away from my kind of lived experience of doing this coaching demo? that might help to carry me to become the person in your seat going forward to become a coach?
I'm not sure how to answer that question. There's something about trusting yourself and what you really know is right for you. And it feels like you know that. So keep trusting yourself, Elisa. You know where you can contribute. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. That is exactly, didn't know, but that's exactly what I needed to hear.
Oh, good. Good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It's been a real honor and pleasure to do this very quick session with you. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to share. Thanks for the opportunity.
So we're going to invite lots of comments and ask Alisa now to, you can rest in the in the invisibility of the Zoom screen.
Yeah. And actually, as we move into the debrief, Alisa, I know you've gone off screen, and I would love to just acknowledge that we are going to debrief the coaching, and I know you're aware of that, and I still want to layer in permission to do so. I'm assuming that it is okay, and just want to be clear. So if it's not clear, if it's not okay, there we go. Alisa's popped it in chat. Yes, absolutely. So there we go.
Thank you, Alisa.
Yeah, so that was what you witnessed, participants, was an example of coactive coaching, specifically used with this tool called the Wheel of Life. And so we want to sort of highlight a few things that you would have seen. And some of you are making note in the chat what you saw there. Lots of use of powerful questions, requesting. Absolutely, there was a focus on embodiment because, again, as we mentioned very early on, coaching is about the whole person, right? This isn't just about what's happening intellectually. It's about what's happening all over. So there were several moments where Roxane asked variations of, what's happening in your body? What are you aware of in your body? Or even a reflection of, hey, I just noticed that you seemed to get lighter. What's happening for you? Right? All of those things. So there's a whole person experience going on. What I want to do is jump right to the beginning of the coaching and underscore a thing that Roxane did, which was what we call designing the alliance, right? She designed very concretely and specifically with Alisa, hey, we're going to be coaching together. What do you need from me? And that is such a broad question, but it helped Alisa name something that might be important for Roxane to know, right? And from there, Roxane was able to layer on and build, right? So you're saying this piece about your identity and these things matter to you. And here's a thing for my identity. And, let's co-create what's needed in the space. So this can actually be of service to you. Right?
Yes, it's really important to create a safe space. It's
Mm-hmm.
safe for the sake of courage, which is interesting because that came up in the coaching later. But it really is creating the space where the client feels that they can relax into themselves and sharing what they feel to share without censoring themselves.
Yeah. And the term safe space is one that, gets bandied about a lot. And I love to make the distinction with my clients that we're creating safety in the sense that you are held and you feel respected and valued. And you might get a little uncomfortable. They're not the same thing. So there's that, because coaching is about growth, and growth includes discomfort. And so there was that invitation, to like name, what do you need to be able to grow here? So that was the first sort of initiation into the coaching. And then knowing that there's this wheel of 8 wedges, Roxane gave Alisa the opportunity to name where she wanted to focus. And this was really interesting because, and we didn't know this, Roxane and I, but Alisa had rated 2 wedges the exact same, money and career. And she got to choose, right? She chose. She wanted to work on career. And then when Roxane discovered that both were rated the same, it's not like Roxane said, oh, let's work on money instead. It's completely client's choice to where they want to work and why that's important for them.
And notice that that point of choice came back again.
Yes.
Something shifted in the current perception of Elisa about her current perception of satisfaction. And I felt I needed to double check that Elisa still wanted to focus on career and whether the score had changed, because it felt like something had shifted.
Exactly. And it's such a great point because so at CTI, we are a level 2 accredited school with ICF, and there are a bunch of PCC markers, professional coaching certification markers that we need to be looking for. And getting clear on the topic is one of those markers. So even though they were about a third of the way through the coaching when this moment happened, where Elisa was like, I think I might have underrated career, Roxane took that moment to pause and check in and be like, hey, so first of all, is it another number? Second of all, are we still talking about career? Is that where you want to be? And even though the number had raised, this was still where Elisa wanted to focus. And so it was a beautiful moment of checking in, reconnection, and getting clear so that the coaching could be in a space that really needed to serve Elisa. Yeah. And then what did you see? What did you see Roxane do? You can sort of type in chat. Let's get a couple of shares. What did you see Roxane do when it was clear that Elisa wanted to work on career and that her number was in that range of 4? See if we can get some ideas here. And if not, that's okay. I'll name that she had her experience it, right? Share. So intellectually, you're saying it's at a 4, right? She did have her dream of a higher number, Debbie, but before she went there, she had her really connect with this current experience of 4. What's it like to hang out here? What's your body like here? What do you feel here? What are you aware of here? What happens in this space? And then, Debbie, she went to, where do you want to be? And she got her to stand up so that if I'm sitting here in this space and I feel like I'm at a 4 and now I start to, but I still hang out physically here, it's hard to disconnect from it. So part of the design, Roxane had very clearly gotten permission to move. They were going to be able to move. Roxane knew that. And so she invited her to stand. And, and I don't know about the rest of you, but I saw even as Elisa stood, there was like, whoa, something's different in this new place. And yes, Elisa, Roxane matched you, right? So that's the other thing in coactive coaching. We don't simply ask our clients to do stuff and then let them be in their space. We actually match them energetically, physically, if possible, because we gain information ourselves from being able to be in a similar posture and space.
Yeah. And it actually happens quite naturally. It's not almost like a conscious choice we make, but I guess that comes with practice. But it's also, why does it happen naturally? It's because of the level of connection. That's right. And whatever the tool we use, whatever the skills, the key is to stay connected with our clients. And immediately we go into, what neuroscience is telling us, that we have mirror neurons at play. And so we're actually picking up what's happening for the other person. Yeah. So the shift of energy becomes actually also information data for the coach, just from mirroring what's happening for the client.
Absolutely. And in both cases, whether it was where Elisa started or where she wanted to go, Elisa gave it a number, 3 or 4 to start, 7.5 to 8 in the desired space. And in neither case did Roxane make an assumption about what that meant. She totally asked Elisa for describe it, explain it. You tell me what a 3 is, right? As opposed to let me assume that a 3 means whatever, or an 8 means whatever. And that is the way to have your client get clearer on what it is that they're looking for.
Yeah. And something I've started doing more consciously in this particular use of the wheel of life is, it's quite rare for clients to actually give themselves a 1. Often, even if it's a low number, it's going to be higher. And so there's always a curiosity about, like, there is something there, which can be very easily stepped over if we don't ask an explicit question about it. And in this case, it was interesting because it really, something shifted in answering that question for Elisa. It's like, oh, actually, maybe I did underscore this level of satisfaction.
Yeah.
Doesn't always happen, but it was the case this time. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and your question was so beautiful, Roxane, right? Which it was some version of, so you did score it at a 3. So what is here? And what more are you longing for, right? And then she was able to go to that place, that dreaming place a little bit of fulfillment, that, you know, this is what I need. This is what I'm longing for. Here's what I want to create, right? And then once she was clear on that, Roxane took her back to the start. So reconnect with where you started. And from here, what's the next step? What's going to take you one step closer to where you want to be, right? Without making any assumptions. This would be a moment where a consultant would tell the client what to do, right? A mentor would be like, here, when I was in your space, here's what I did. From a coactive coaching perspective, that is not what Roxane did. What Roxane did was ask Elisa to tap in and, like, from your truest self, what do you know is next for you? If that's where you're headed, what's the next logical step? Yeah. Yeah. So by doing all of this, you know, there was this beautiful moment because Elisa named that the thing she was needing was to be a little more courageous and share what was happening in her life and what she needed. And Roxane was so connected that she was able to name, you're doing it right now. Like, you are courageous right now. So it's the thing you're longing for, and it's already present, right? And that reflection, that acknowledgement, it was such a beautiful use of acknowledgement as a skill, right? It's something we do in coactive coaching.
Yeah, that's so important. I just want to underline that because it's happening in the moment. You know, you can, the tendency is to think, oh, you know, I'll do an acknowledgement at the end of the session. But actually, there are many moments during a session where you can let your client know that they're being seen for their talents and their gifts. And I know one of you posted that right at the beginning of the debrief. And that was such a too good an opportunity to be missed because it was happening like now live.
Yeah. Well, and you know, when it comes to acknowledgements, I think it's really important to name that these are not simply compliments. This is not, blowing smoke or simply saying something for the sake of being nice. Roxane was actually seeing this in front of her. This is what was actually transpiring. And so as coach, it's important for us to name, here's what I see. Here's what's actually happening. So that the client gets, this isn't, she's not just saying it for the sake of saying it. She actually sees this in me, right? And that can be a powerful, powerful moment. And it was in this case.
And that led beautifully to what is next, because of course, with Elisa having acknowledged that this need for recognition and needing to be more courageous, as we were closing the session and so moving into, okay, but what's next? It was very easy to build on what Elisa has shared and say, so what is it that you want to share? And clearly there was already a lot in Elisa's awareness that was just waiting to be brought to the surface.
There's something about having our clients name it out loud, right? So it's bubbling up here and they know it and they sense it, and we know that they know it and sense it. And then when it gets spoken or written or otherwise externalized, now it becomes real. And so, you know, Roxane asked, what are you committing to? What are you wanting to commit to? And then there was an accountability piece. And the accountability wasn't, you know, historically in coaching, it used to be quite common to ask a question like, what will you do by when and how will I know? And now, because we are truly partnering with our clients, This isn't about me as coach. I don't need to know if my client has done it. It's like, how will you hold yourself accountable? What do you need for accountability? And my client might ask me to check in with them next time we meet, and that's totally fair. 9 times out of 10, in my experience, though, they lean into somebody that's already in their circle. You know what? I actually have a really good friend who will totally hold me accountable, or my partner will hold me accountable, or whatever, or I'm good. Like, so many of my clients are like, I actually will do it. I've told you. And Elisa did a version of that, right? I've just declared this in front of 100 people. So I will lean into this other person, which is such a empowering capacity to know that one can hold themselves accountable.
Yeah, that's part of the resourcefulness that we see in our clients, that we know if they're committing, but they have the capacity to follow through.
Yeah.
And also, there's an action piece about next step, which was, very clearly identified. And there's also a reflective part.
Yeah.
And about, asking the client what they're learning about themselves or about the situation is a useful question, especially when we have clients who are very action oriented, by the way. But in general, it is useful. And you could see that another skill emerged at the end from that question, which was what we call an inquiry, which is really inviting the person to stay a bit longer in reflective mode, introspective mode, to find more about themselves. Because the more they know about themselves, of course, the more they're going to be empowered to take the actions that they want to take.
Because there's a particular context in coactive coaching which we call forward the action, deepen the learning. Because what we know is that a client who takes action without understanding why they're taking it, it's not super sustainable. And a client who spends all their time in reflective mode without ever actually taking action doesn't go anywhere. And so there's a way that Roxane made sure that both of those were blended at the end, right? What are you committing to, and what are you learning? And then providing an inquiry, or tweaking that, co-designing that inquiry so that it would actually serve Elisa. Yeah. So we'd like to provide a little bit of space for Q&A, and we want to give you a bit of time to sort of be in conversation before we do that. So let's send folks to breakout rooms, groups of small groups, like 4 or 5 people. And you can use this group, this space to have a conversation around 2 questions. What are you learning? And what are you curious about? Those are the 2 questions for you to sort of anchor your conversation, and then come on back. We'll give you 5-ish minutes, so not super long. And then we'll come on back and answer some questions that you might have.
Yeah, it's also a chance for you to speak, because we're aware that we've been talking at you a lot, which is not representative of how typically sessions would go. So get a chance to connect with each other, talk, digest what you've seen, and maybe inspire each other with some questions you'd like to bring back for the Q&A afterwards.
Okay. So I think.
Thank you for the link, Alisa.
Yay.
Here you go. You're doing it.
Yay, Elisa. Well done. So folks are going to breakout rooms. Yeah, that's what's happening.
I think so. I'm seeing the number of participants diminishing quite rapidly.
Yes.
Which I think is a good sign they're going into the breakout as opposed to disappearing.
As opposed to leaving. Yeah. Yeah, people are in breakouts. I can see that. I think most of them. I'm going to hop over to breakout. Well, let's just see. There's 27 participants still here. I'm going to quickly hop over to, oh no, I'm not. There we go. I'm going to hop to room 13 because I see that there's one person there. I don't want them hanging by themselves. I'll be right back in a moment. Is that okay, Roxane?
Sure.
Okay.
And Kayla is saying she must be on the wrong link because she didn't get a breakout. Don't know if you can help, Maite. And we can probably pause the recording for now.
To get to. These are great questions. Yeah, you're right, Joaquin. Yeah.
I can't see questions.
Go to Q&A. So down at the bottom, there's a chat and there's a Q&A.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's a few questions there. Great. We shall answer those live momentarily.
Seconds.
Right. I'll be back momentarily, is my guess. The webinar format is so different from regular Zoom. At least it feels very different to me.
Yeah, it does to me too.
I see folks coming back. Welcome back, folks. So I'm wondering if we are all here. If we're down to this. Looks like maybe.
I think I would start.
Yeah, let's do it.
Just in case people are not coming back, which is also possible.
Yeah, let's do it. So we've got some questions in the Q&A already. Let's start sort of at the top and work our way down, shall we?
Yep.
So Yvonne, your question, when do you push your clients and when do you hold? Great question. The reason I'm hesitating is because part of it is purely intuitive. You know, I'll have designed with my client. It's a sense that I've got. And the key to pushing in particular is non-attachment. So here's what I'm going to make up, and Roxane, you can blend with me here, is like, if I make a request of my client and they agree to it, but I get a sense that this is really kind of not very challenging for them, or that it's not actually going to serve them, I might push, but it's up to my client to decide whether they're going to actually take it or not. What I don't ever want to create a dynamic where my client starts agreeing to things just because I asked, right? It's that sort of thing. What would you add, Roxane?
Yeah, I'm noticing a real reaction to the word pushing.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I don't think that's actually in our language, even what we use, the word we use, we might challenge them, champion them to believe they can do more than what they think they can. So I'll certainly, if I have a sense that my client is playing small, and they're not, they're shying away from whatever the bigger risk that they actually could take, I might just ask them to consider that. But as Gail said, I would not. Once I've offered it, if the client said, no, this is what I'm doing, that's good, then obviously I will follow the lead.
Because in coaching, again, it's that partnership designed specifically for the client. And in coactive coaching, we hold that our clients are naturally creative, resourceful, and whole. that they know what they want. And our job as coach is to hold them in the space that we've co-created and trusting that they actually know what they need, what they want, that they're willing to do. If I get a sense that they're playing small, then yeah, I might challenge. I might name that, hey, I sort of get the sense that you're holding back. But when they speak and say, no, this is actually it, then I don't get to judge that. And I do get to revel in their choice, whatever it is.
Yeah. So I'm moving to the next question.
Mhm.
There were no moments of silence during the session. What do you think? So I felt there were some times where after a question, there was a time of reflection for Elisa that, I was allowing that space of reflection. And it's true that I didn't call out for some slowing down and pausing and asking for some silence, which sometimes I might have. So silence is a skill that we use in coaching, for sure. And in coactive coaching, we certainly use it a lot when there are emotions present that we're inviting our client to inquire about or explore further.
Mhm.
So it didn't feel that it was needed so much in this particular interaction. And another coach with a different style, creating a different connection with the client, might have asked for some silence.
Yeah. There's no hard and fast rule about when or how often or where to use silence, right? This is where, as coach, it's important for us to really be connected with our client and know, oh, look, they're slowing down. Match them. Wait a second, they're just hopping right to the next thing. Hop with them, you know. And if my intuition tells me, oh, they're buzzing right by this, then I might take that moment and be like, hey, client of mine, I notice you just buzzed right by that. Uh, what would happen if we slowed down for a second? Yes, Yvonne, it's like dance, right? Dance in this moment, right here.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the next time she meets with a client, does the client choose again what she wants to talk about? Yeah, so typically what happens is we hold accountability. So I would be asking, if I were to meet Elisa again and we were in an ongoing coaching relationship, I would ask her, so what happened with the blog? Like, what did you learn? What's next about that for you? And then once we created some learning about what the commitment the client took, then we would go into, okay, and today, what would you like to discuss in our session, and what's important about that, and what would you like to take from our conversation about this topic? So we would again just establish a new agenda, as we call it in our jargon.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what I love about it, Roxane, again, is we make no assumptions, right? I might, there's certainly been moments where I'm like, oh, I suspect we're going to talk about this today because I know what they talked about last time. Client shows up, and let's be honest, a month has passed or 2 weeks have passed. Their life's in a different spot, and they may or may not want to talk. So I take my lead from my client, always what they want. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's also, highlighting that actually the real work that clients do is not during the session with us. Sessions are sort of catalysts.
Yeah.
But the real work happens in between session. And so, as Gail was saying, by the time you see them again, they've moved on, they've learned, so something happened, and other things take priority for them, maybe.
I always love the phrase, that the real coaching happens between sessions, right? So I tend to hold sessions as bookends, and I might get curious about what happened in between. However, the topic for this session is going to be entirely designed by my client. They get to decide that. Next question. What might you do if your client gets stuck in a step, for example, between where they are and what they visualize the 7.5 or 8 to be? So I'm not sure if I'm going to get this right, Kristen. Correct me if I'm wrong, but so again, just as Roxane did, it's meeting the client where they're at. So they start at, in this case, 3.5, 4, 3, 4, somewhere in there. Client, where do you want to be? There's actually no if I understand it correctly, there's no opportunity for them to get stuck because you're just asking them to dream. They're not, and so they might dream at the level of a 5, or they might dream at the level of a 10, or they might dream at whatever. They get to decide what dreaming looks like for them. And our job as coaches is to fan the flames of that dream. So they get really connected with what it is they're longing for. And then, it's so what's the step that you want to take? Right. And they get to decide.
And that might be where they get stuck. Actually happens to me recently on a session. So when we got back to the original number, this client, for example, was like, she just couldn't think of any ideas of how to move to the next step to get to that vision. Yeah. So there are various things here. Of course, you want to just articulate what's going on, and clearly, so it feels like you're a bit stuck here. And sometimes what happens is various scenarios. You can have our clients feeling what we call saboteurs. So with that sort of internal critic voice that's saying, oh, you can't possibly, get any closer to this dream, or, you shouldn't do, or so acknowledging that. And in the fulfillment course that we teach, we actually give some tools, fundamentals and fulfillment, some tools to manage that. There's sometimes that the client realize actually they need to think of maybe a closer dream for them to tap into the resources. So maybe if they aim for 10, they think actually maybe if I aim for 7, somehow it releases their creativity and resources to, because it feels a bit closer. And what you can do, and that's what happened to me recently, is to say, let's brainstorm. Let's just what kind of things you can do. And then the coach would contribute to the brainstorm with absolutely no attachment. Actually, usually we throw some rather crazy ideas, out of the box ideas. So that just to sort of loosen up the client a little bit, so they can start to say, oh yes. And then usually then the client say, oh yes, and I could do this and I could do that. And then you sort of back into the flow of the session, and the client can move on and commit to something.
Brilliant. Yeah, because brainstorming, and often with clients, we do have to remind them that in brainstorming, there's no judgment or evaluation that's allowed. We get to throw everything, but what it does is dislodge any sort of judgment that might be holding them back. So that's, very cool. Jessie, how do you manage when clients want you to tell them what to do? Even having set up that expectation, sometimes clients ask point blank questions. Here's what I do. Having designed it with them, if a client says, but what would you do? I will gently push back with, I'm happy to tell you what I would do, and I'm more curious in what you would do. So for the moment, what would you do? And then I will offer, but only because they've asked me that and given permission. But I will never offer it as an initial thing, because I don't want that to stump what's going on. What about you, Roxane?
Yeah, I think it's going back to our original alliance, and also the reminder, right from the beginning, but maybe you need a reminder about why we don't. And there's very solid research now showing that the retention in the ownership of the ideas when they're given to you as advice or offered, as suggestion, they don't have the same impact at all on the client. Actually, I have a first-hand experience of this when I did my training. This is a long time ago, where I had my coach giving me an idea, and I felt so deflated because I actually was coming up with the same idea, and the coach giving it to me was like, I'm not sure I want this idea anymore. So, explaining the why, and just checking again on our alliance might be useful. And there is sometimes an expertise that I do have I could share with the client, but in that case, I would clearly separate the two, a little bit like what you were saying, and say, we can talk about that later. And I would always put the ball back in their camp and say, okay, now you've heard this, what else could you think of? Where else could you find some more resources, and then decide what you can do?
Yeah. What if your client is not as self-aware like Elisa? Is there a level of self-awareness that's needed to start coactive coaching? Great question. My answer is that for most of my clients, self-awareness is something that gets built as they go. And I make up that there's already some level of self-awareness that has them seeking this out. And so then we build from there. That would be my answer.
Yeah, I would say rather than self-awareness, I would say, is there enough openness and willingness to engage in a process of exploration and potential transformation?
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
more critical to the success of a coaching engagement. So if the client is that everything's okay, I love whatever I have in my life, I don't need to change anything, I'm fine, don't want to change anything.
Mm-hmm.
I can be super self-aware, but if I'm not interested in changing anything, then this is not the context that's going to be suitable for coaching engagement.
Yeah.
And nothing wrong about the client, it might just be not the right time. Not everybody, needs or wants to be coached all the time.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Jermaine's question. Okay, so the nugget of this question is, if I've got it correctly, is how to balance like coaching each individual and not allowing experiences with past clients to sort of color how I would do this. I think when I was a beginning coach, yes, it was a challenge because I hadn't yet figured out how to self-manage and how to stop making assumptions. Now it's less of a challenge because those are the two keys, right? Managing myself, not making any assumptions about what I know or think I know, and not assuming that the person in front of me, even though they technically identify a particular way that may seem similar to a former client of mine, not making any assumptions that their experience is the same because that's going to get in the way. So
yeah, and therefore staying curious, of course, that would be the antidote. I don't find it a challenge, but it might be just because I have a very bad memory. So I don't remember.
Fair. So have we ever worked in a group coaching is what I'm seeing here. One coach, 3 peers. And you're asking about the effectiveness of this approach. Yes, I mean, group coaching, lots of people use group coaching, team coaching, all those sorts of things. It absolutely works. And there are specific ways to modify the model to be able to use it that way, is what I would say to do that. I think I wouldn't necessarily go into all the details of that, but I think everyone develops their own frame around that.
Taking a lead. Oops, hold on. Where am I? Well, taking a lead from how Elisa started and ended her coaching. Is there a transparent process path? Or what is FOTR? Sorry.
Front of the room. Front of the room.
Oh,
leadership.
sorry. Front of the room leadership and CTI. How diverse is the current front of the room leadership? Is there a pie chart? Is the diversity in leadership reflective of the diversity of the room? Great question.
Well, there's lots of questions here. So the easiest one to answer in this moment is there is no pie chart at this moment, but I will take that away because I feel like that could be something we could create. The current front of room leader body is more diverse than it has been historically, and there's still room to grow. So we are working on that. And whether it's reflective of the diversity in the room, that depends on which room, because we lead globally. And so there is a way that it absolutely matches the diversity, and it can sometimes be a little off kilter just because of who's in the space that particular day, that particular course, that particular geographical region. But we are very aware of it as we
vary. I would say it has become more diverse and we have way more to go.
Exactly. Great question. And as for transparent process, there is a process. It involves auditions. There's quite a number of pieces to it. Happy to be in conversation with anyone who might like to know about that. You can send us an email, and happy to tell you what's involved. I can say that it includes certification in the coactive model and completion of our leadership program, and then a whole audition process that goes from there, just high level. Yeah.
how do you know what your uniqueness is in coaching in the start? Such a great question. That's certainly an invitation we have for our participants. So on the very first module, fundamentals, the whole course is structured around what we do as coaches, so the skills we use, but also who we are as coaches. And that's a thread we hold throughout our training, because actually coactive stands precisely for, the co, which is much more the being, the reflective part of us, and the active is more the action and what we do. So there is definitely a very strong stance in supporting coaches who are in training in the coactive model to really be the unique version of themselves while sitting in the model, and using the coaching skills that don't just belong to coactive, by the way, it's obviously a overlap with other schools. But actually, I think that from my perspective, I think that's something quite differential with other ways of training, because we're so focused on the whole person, whether it's for our clients or the coach, that's a constant invitation to look.
Yeah. And you get to, if I think back to my beginning journey, like 20 years ago, if I could give myself a piece of advice in terms of finding who I want to work with, it would be like, worry less about getting it right and worry more about coaching as many people as you can, because it's through doing that you actually discern. It's certainly how I discerned it, was like, oh, look, I love when I know I'm coaching so-and-so and so-and-so, and I get really tired when I think about coaching so-and-so. So guess what? Probably shouldn't coach folks in that demographic, or maybe it's only that particular, but it gave me some information that I could work with. And that was super, super helpful. Yeah. How is the approach to online coaching different than in-person coaching? It's so funny because when I started coaching, there was no online, right? It was phone coaching or in person, but the same thing. And I would say the difference is mostly about modality. It's nothing changes in terms of how I coach. I coach exactly the same, whether I am online or in person or on the phone. I use the embodiment. I use the verbal. I use silence. I use all of it. What changes is how I might express it, right? So if I'm in a room with someone, it's a little more obvious. If I'm on the phone with someone, I might have to describe, hey, here's what's happening for me, what's happening for you. I might, that sort of thing. But the actual coaching, I don't experience as a whole lot different from one way to another.
I would agree. And then the only thing I would say is that clients might make up that it is different and make assumptions about what happens. So for example, if they are on the video, they might not give themselves permission to move or to express themselves because they feel a bit self-conscious, especially because, I always hide my self-view, but I know a lot of people don't. So you get to see yourself, and that can be a little bit intimidating. So they can make up, but there's, some things, I don't know, they sort of self-censor. So, I would design around that. And actually, when we do run the courses online, I remind people, that you are not this little box on the screen, neither are your colleagues for this course. Remember that we have a 3D whole person behind your little box. So you give yourself permission to express yourself fully beyond the constraints of the online setup.
And then what practices do you have as coaches to ensure that you make the necessary impact when you are not feeling your best? Yes, that has happened many times where I'm not feeling great. For me, truly, I name that transparently up front. So if I'm definitely not feeling well enough to coach, I will reschedule. I design that with my clients, and I would ask them the same thing. If you can't be fully present, then please let's reschedule. And if I have the capacity to be there mostly, then I just name for my client, hey, just so you know, I seem to be coming down with something, or gosh, I have a real headache, or whatever. And by naming it, it clears it out of the space and allows me to be as present as possible in service of my client. So that's how I do that.
Yeah, there is similar. And then, of course, there is the ongoing practices of regenerating our energy so we are available. So I think where you're pointing with your question is definitely the realm of self-management and how we look after ourselves, how we replenish our energy, how we do our own work so that we are as available as possible for the work that needs to be done with our clients. And that's an ongoing practice. And lots of ways of doing it, and certainly inviting everybody to find their way, whether it's physical exercise or meditation or cold showers or whatever.
Yeah. We've got a couple more questions here and a little bit. So let's take these two questions and then we'll have to wrap, unfortunately. Loving the engagement. So thank you all. How does the coach ensure his or her cultural awareness during a coaching session? Thank you for this question. This is actually really relevant, not only from a time in history model, but from an ICSF perspective, this is one of the markers, is as coaches, we need to have an awareness, continually be in the exploration of what it means to be culturally aware. And Roxane did a beautiful thing right at the beginning where she designed and said, is there anything you need me to know? And Elisa's answer did come from a place of cultural awareness, right? This is who I am. This is my identity. These are the pieces that I tend to leverage. And another way that you might do it is to ask the question, what is there about your lived experience that I need to know? What's important about your identity for me to know? Some of these phrases may not have the same impact in different parts of the world, so you play with that. But I think part of it is about asking your client, what do I need to know? So that I'm not making assumptions or coming from biases based on what my experience is as a human, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And then I would say the other way around too. Like, is there anything that you need to know about me? I mean, of course, the coaching is not about the coach, and some clients are really curious and they need to know a bit more about your background and experience, or your professional experience or lived experience, for them to feel connected to you and safe.
Yeah.
So that it goes both ways.
Yeah, I actually think we have a responsibility as coaches to learn as much as we can about all cultures, so that helps us in the work that we do. Last question. Should you coach your client to view what level 10 looks like if they're only willing to get to level 7.5 or 10 or 8? The word should is throwing me.
Yes, I think it's looping back to one of our first questions about the pushing or not. It feels, you can feel when the client is not allowing themselves to dream big, and that would be part of your listening and your intuition in response to that. If they're happy with the 7.58, you might want to check. So, for example, I could have checked with Lisa. So, which one? 7.5 or 8 or higher? But eventually we go back to the same kind of point that we made earlier. That the client knows where they want to go, and remember that a coaching session is only one contact point over the course of an engagement. So it might be that for now it's 7.58. Maybe something later will evolve, and the client actually will give themselves this 10 as a new objective or a new vision. And as a final question, is that Camry set up? Funny, we were talking about that
we were
before, because it was a conscious choice.
Yeah.
And a couple of things we said is that we feel that it's actually being willing to be real and vulnerable in a real environment as opposed to a background. there's the logistical aspect that the background is sometimes a bit odd, and you kind of, especially if you move, you kind of disappear and merge with your background.
9 3/4.
So it could be a little bit odd.
Yeah.
And then the safety piece for you, Gail,
Yeah.
wasn't it?
Well, yeah, because it's what I'm aware of is that when somebody has a virtual background on, I actually don't know what's behind them. And I have had it happen where somebody else has been in the space. It wasn't a problem, but I can imagine that it could be if somebody else is in the space and I am unaware. I don't ever want my client to feel like someone's hanging out behind me, right? And so, uh, you know, I would rather have the whole place visible, minus, you know, my corners where there are piles of things, but they can see that there's nothing hiding in my space. That's sort of where I am.
Yeah. Okay, so we are at the hour,
Yeah.
and I've just seen your comments, Elisa, about sharing an example. So if you can do that in 1 minute, you're welcome to. And yes, Yvette, we did understand
Yeah.
what was behind the question. Absolutely, that some people don't give themselves permission to dream.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, the example that I wanted to share, I worked with a therapist for a number of years and know that there's a huge difference between coaching and therapy. But one of the things that she did that was really beautiful that made my experience with her feel not so clinical and more like she was my biggest advocate was when I mentioned things that I was watching or reading, she would watch and read them too. And then we could reference the kind of same points
Yeah.
that made sense for me and also showed me that she was like invested and really understanding from my
Yeah.
perspective.
That's
So
great.
that
Beautiful.
Thank you, Elisa.
Thanks for
I'm glad that
sharing.
you get the last word, Alisa. I think that's
Yes.
very appropriate.
Indeed. Thank you all for being with us for this demo. Look forward to seeing you around the coactive or the coaching world, wherever that may be. I see that happens a lot. Wishing you all the best as you continue your journeys on this International Coaching Week.
Yes, enjoy it. And thank you, Elisa, again for being such a courageous client.
Thank you all. Thank you, Mo, for your compliment there.
Thank you. Yes.
Be well, everyone.
Bye.